Hey, I'm recording live from my in-laws' closet. So forgive me if the sound's a little wonky. We're traveling for the holidays and I'm just going with the flow. I got my comfies on. I did bring my recording equipment, but I still think that you'll get a lot of value out of this episode without the sound being too distracting. So if you're not familiar with this show, I'm Angela Barnard. I'm your host, and this is the Intentional Mind Podcast. We're in episode 18, and this episode is about a habit that you want to have if you want to be more intentional with your life. And I wanted to share this quote because I think it really resonates with this episode. It's from Laura Evans, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist. And her words are, "I've learned how important it is to really evaluate your own life, to pay attention to what's going on in your own head, and to know that this is your life and make conscious decisions about how you want to live it." And I love how she said to pay attention to what's going on in your own head. Because we know that everything that we create, it stems from the mind, what's happening in the mind. So if you don't like the results that you have in your life, that is evidence that there's something going on in your mind that is not in alignment with where you want to be. That means you're probably believing things that aren't in alignment. You're probably making up stories that don't serve you. And we all do this. So a way that we can know that some things might be off is by doing a consistent evaluation practice of looking at how we're feeling, the results that we're having, all of that stuff. So I brought on a special guest. You're going to hear from her in a little bit. Her name is Freij. She is from the Netherlands. You'll hear that accent. And she is currently living in Canada. And what she does is she helps people like me and people that just want to be more intentional with their life, design documents that help them do so. So she's designed a lot of course documents for me, opt-in forms, documents that can serve my audience because you want to get your thoughts out. She does journals, planners, things like that. And I thought, what a great person to bring on to talk to us about evaluation because she's been practicing it for so long. And she has a document that she's going to share with us. The document, you can find a link to getting it. It's just the list of questions that she goes through for her evaluation practice. You can find that in the details section of this episode. All right. Now, before we get on with Ellen's story and her practice, I wanted to share a little bit about my evaluation practice and just what I've been learning. So at the end of every year, I love to evaluate the whole year. And it can be really tough this is weird because I'm just telling you I love doing it. But yeah, it can be tough for me to actually sit down and do it. So what I do is I do something that kind of forces me to actually sit down and do it. My mentor coach used to ask me this. He'd say, "What is your pull to action?" And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, like how when the fridge is empty, that's your pull to action, like to go to the grocery store. What are you going to make your pull to action so you actually do the thing? So my pull to action to actually do an evaluation practice was my end of the year letter that I send out in December because I know people are expecting that Christmas card and the letter that goes along with it. So the letter that I like to send out is a letter that summarizes my whole year and talks about the highlights. This year I added my word of the year, which is immerse, because I want to fully immerse myself in what I want to create versus being distracted and all that. So if you haven't had a word of the year, I recommend you pick one. You can pick one at any time. If you get one, let us know. You can check us out on Facebook. We have a group called The Intentionalists if you aren't already there, and we've been sharing our words. So that's been really fun. So anyways, my practice of ending the year and summarizing it, I do it because one, I know the people that I'm sending this letter to do care about my life and they want to know what's been happening. But really, truly, it's for me. It's for me because it allows me to evaluate and kind of think about how I want to improve. Also, celebrate the things that have happened. A lot of us don't spend time to intentionally celebrate, so it allows me to do that. And I think it's really fun because I can have these letters from every year that I can give to my children in the future, so they kind of know how my life was. Like, how fun would that be? I think about if I had that from my parents, I would just love that and value it so much. So I think it's a really cool practice. So a thing that I've been doing with a more consistent practice is evaluating my week. So what I do is on Fridays, I try to plan out the next week. And I can't say that I have this habit programmed completely because sometimes it doesn't happen. But I'm really working on this. And in the next year, I want to be really consistent and have it be something I don't even need to think about because it's been programmed. It's like, just like brushing my teeth kind of thing. So on Fridays, when I'm planning out my next week, what I do is I evaluate the previous week. And I have things that I wanted to get done that week. And I look and see, like, did I get those things done? I evaluate how I felt, the things I wanted to celebrate. So basically, I get intentional, too, about the next coming week. So I see if there's anything I want to move to the next week that I wasn't able to get done. And I pick 3 things that I'm really focusing on for the next week. But what this has allowed me to do is to get stuff done that is important to me because it keeps my mind focused on that. And sometimes it allows me to take things off my list where I'm like, this isn't really important to me. And then I also assess, like, am I feeling good? And if I'm not feeling the peace and the joy and that things like that, then I know that some stuff needs to change. So there's some stuff in the next week I need to prioritize. And maybe that's more self-care, whatever that looks like to help spark those peace and the joy that I want to feel. I try to bring evaluation into my everyday practice as well. So one of my things that I'm working on being more consistent with is planning my day in advance. So I try to do it the night before the next day. And when I'm planning the next day, I'm also evaluating the previous day. So I usually focus on 3 things that I want to accomplish in that day. And I kind of write out important times that, I might have a call or some meeting or thing I need to be at. And those 3 things, I will see, like, from the previous day, did I get those 3 things done? And if I didn't, then I will move them to the next day. I also assess gratitude, how I felt about the day, my wins, the things I'm celebrating, all of that stuff. So the reason I can get down to the day-to-day thing is because I spend time doing the evaluation for the whole week, because I'm assessing what needs to be moved to the next week. And I make sure that the things that I said were going to be important to me to get done this next week, they need to fit somewhere in my day-to-day. And you can see then why visioning even for your whole year would be really important, because that determines your weeks, and then your weeks determines your days and all of that. I've been obsessed with evaluation since college. One of my favorite classes to take was program evaluation. And when I started learning that the most successful organizations practice evaluation, and that, in my opinion, the most successful people practice evaluation, I was like, that's who I want to be. So I need to develop that habit too. Because how do you know if you're heading the direction that you want to head if you're not being consistent with evaluating that? You don't know, right? So what I want to encourage you to do is to figure out what an evaluation practice might look like for you, and what pull to action might be helpful to you. So remember, I said the end of the year letter that I'm sending, because I know people are counting on receiving that letter, it was my pull to action to evaluate, right? Now, if you know that you are somebody who needs that pull to action, or you're somebody who needs accountability to actually stay consistent, if you're somebody just like me, then I recommend that you join our group for the new year. We have a group that's called Committed to Your Vision. And what we're doing is we're holding each other accountable to our vision. So we start January 14th. We meet for 3 months, and it's once a month that we're meeting. It doesn't take that much of your time. It's like an hour and a half meeting. And then in between, we're doing some things throughout the week to hold us accountable that you can pop in on any time. And it's completely affordable. I made it so affordable. So if you want a community, a small group of people. We're only going to have 8 of us. And there's a reason for that. It's because we want to really spend time talking about our vision, talking about our goals, seeing where we're at. And I want to make sure that we have time to do that. So anyways, if you want to be a part of that, you can email me at my personal email address. It's back with Gmail. We have Ange, A-N-G-M, Barnard, my last name, at gmail.com. So make sure you hurry if you want to be a part of that, because we're closing the doors on that on January 7th. And there's some things that you need to do before then, like get clear on the vision and all of that. But I think it's going to be really fun. And if you miss out on this opportunity, message me for accountability, and I can share with what groups we have going on and all of that if that's something you need. Again, this is the lowest rate that I would ever offer this, so this is the time to hop on. So what's really fun is Ellen is actually a part of that accountability group. So we're going to hear from Ellen why she devotes time to evaluation and kind of what her practice looks like. So Ellen, tell us why you devote time to evaluation.
First of all, my mind is way clearer. I think every month now when I do the reflection, I know where I'm heading. I think it really helps me focus on what I want. And then usually I actually get it. It's the same when, with your visioning course and your visioning, you put something in your mind, you either in a vision board or on paper, and for some reason it just becomes easier taking the actions towards it and making it happen.
I love how you said it becomes easier to take the action towards it. And that's really because your brain is so familiar now with what it is that you want. You keep bringing that focus in front of it that there's less resistance around it. It's more of the norm. Because we know that the subconscious part of your mind really likes what's familiar. Now, if you make what it is that you desire familiar, you're more likely to achieve it. And a way that you can do that is by evaluating on a consistent basis. It makes me think about when my husband and I were hiking. We were doing this 3-day hike, and we knew our end destination. We're like, this is where we want to end up after 3 days. But we had to make sure that we were constantly evaluating as we were heading there to make sure that we had not gone off the path, especially at points where some might say there were distractions or there was a lot of other paths crossing. So I remember one time we did not double check. We didn't do any form of evaluation, if you will. We didn't look down at the map. We just kept going kind of like blindly. And before we knew it, we were 3 miles off of the path we were supposed to be on. And I was so upset because the terrain was tough and we had to backtrack. So we had lost some time and things like that. So that's just a good visual for us. Now we know that evaluation doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. So Ellen, tell us about your process.
I keep it simple. I think this was also a process that I've gone through. In the beginning, I wanted to do a lot. I wanted to do everything, maybe journal for 10 pages. But in the end, I found out, you ask a lot from yourself sometimes. But in the end, I thought, I just want to keep it simple. I also prefer making lists instead of writing it all out. And now I just ask myself 4 questions each month.
So I'm looking at the 4 questions that you ask yourself on the document that you're sharing with us. Question 1, you list out what your highlights and achievements are. Question 2, you ask yourself what went well. Question 3, how can I improve? And question 4, what made me feel good? And I love that you rely on feelings as part of your reflection and evaluation process. I know people have heard me say on the show that everything we do it because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. So our real goal is always to feel a certain way.
And when you start to think about that, what actually makes me feel good, you can really focus on that too. Spend more time on doing those things. And for example, when I first launched my first planner on Etsy, it was very, very scary. I didn't know how people were going to respond, but I just decided, okay, I'm going to do it. And then And then I felt so powerful doing it after I've done it. And I was like, oh, I want to feel this more often. I feel so fulfilled doing this. I feel so good about myself right now.
I love that because I can so relate to the feeling of just making yourself proud. And I think the more that we all pay attention to what we've done that made us proud, and that comes with an evaluation practice, you're taking note of it. Your brain is like, oh, I want to do more of that because I want to feel that way more. And I know dopamine is really involved in that. And dopamine is the hormone where a lot of people think of it as like the happy hormone. But really, dopamine is about pursuit, and it gets released as we are making effort in pursuing something. So if you think about, if we all want to be happy people, then we need to be in the pursuit of our visions and our dreams. And dopamine will keep us coming back for more. It's actually the reason why people get addicted to things, right? So think about how you can use it for you. And a way that you can do that is by making note of all the things that you've been doing that you're proud of. And your brain's like, yeah, I want more of that. And it just keeps releasing that dopamine. So we know that your evaluation practice, Ellen, has really served you because it got you to the point of having the business that you do now, and it's going to help it grow even more. But I know that sometimes things can get hard on our journey of making our vision a reality. So I'm curious, what is the hardest thing for you?
The hardest thing for me is I tend to procrastinate. Even when I really want something, I always find reasons not to do it, or like I feel lazy now, or I'm tired, or it can be just something simple like I don't feel like doing it. And even now it sounds like I have it all together with the reflections. And in a way, that's true now because I found a system that works for me by having simplified it. But still, I always need a little push, to take the next step. And I think there's always like a threshold that's holding me back, especially when it's something scary or new.
And I feel like there's a bunch of us nodding right now. Like we totally get that. Procrastinating, feeling like something's kind of always holding us back. What I love, though, is that you're so aware of that. And I know your evaluation practices helped. You're like, okay, I have this habit of procrastinating that I don't want. That's not serving me. So you invest in things and programs, which is why you're joining our accountability group, because you know it's going to push you forward. And I'm the same way. Like I'm aware of things that hold me back, and I then find solutions for them. And I think that is the key. So thank you so much, Ellen, for being on the show. Everyone will know where to find you because all the details are in our show notes. And if you want the pretty template that Ellen made us with her 4 questions that she uses to evaluate, that you can do weekly, you can do monthly, whatever works for you, just get started on some kind of evaluation practice. All right, let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Leave us a review if you haven't done so, and check us out on our Facebook group, The Intentional List, and we'll be there to hold you accountable to making your vision a reality. Have an awesome week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.